What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here, Taco Moto Co. It's our 24 FE501W, and we continue to evolve this bike. This is our primary bike for the 2024 ride season. It is got closing 1,000 miles on it, 20 something plus hours, and we have been exposing, as we do, cross-platforming this bike. So far this bike has been on the vet track at Paula, Fox. It's been single-tracked, hard enduroed. We just got back. This bike just came back from a 700-mile, 5-day trip from Vegas to Arizona. We did Vegas. My buddy Cliff and I, we rode from Vegas to Phoenix, back to Vegas. As much dirt as possible. We did about 270 miles of highway. Pavement. Some of that, 18 miles or so of that, was on Interstate 10 with speeds up to, I like to restrain top speed, highway speeds to about 65 max. You know, if you think about it, you're riding on just the rubber knobs of a knobby tire, and you probably have less rubber on the ground than the deck of a playing card. Cell phone, if you're being very generous. So I am not a fan of going super fast on pavement. I don't like it. Plus the vibes, the motor vibes, tire vibes, knobby tire vibrations, it's fairly unpleasant. So I'm not into it. But it's a necessary evil when you do long duration trips. So the things I wanted to talk about and cover on this update are some of the things that I think are standouts as far as the platform itself, and then some of the improvements that we've done. And let's talk about a few of the things. Maybe we'll start with tires. The Shinko 505 that I have on the back is just a tire that I keep going back to. We've used a lot of tires. I've burned through so many different tires out there. And while there's a lot of good ones and a lot that I like, I just seem to keep going back to the Shinko 505. And this is the 120 size, which is very generous. It's a very big tire. It's larger than most other 120 sizes out there. It's a soft tire with a dirt bike tread. So it's kind of a hybrid intermediate type tire. And inside of it is the Air Moose. And this is the first time we've run the Air Moose. And I put 700 miles on it, and 270 or so, something of that was pavement, 65 mile an hour asphalt. I'll asterisk that though by saying that it was cool when we were down there in Arizona. The weather was fairly cool, so that's going to be a different set of parameters, wear demand parameters, than if it was hot. We have run Moose. I like to do a 60 and 60 test with a Moose, and that's 60 miles at 60 miles an hour in as hot of a Las Vegas day as I can get. And sometimes that's 110, 115 miles an hour. And there are some Moose that do exceptionally well with that, and then others that show somewhere. And we need to do a very comprehensive Moose tube tire system video. I won't cover that here. That's something that's in the works, and I've got a lot of notes for that one that we'll make. But all of that to say, the first experience here on the Aero Moose went really well. I was pleased and impressed. The feel and feedback of these are very similar to Michelin, when the Michelin are a little more worn down. So that is to say, these felt softer and more compliant straight away, where the Michelin need to get beat in a little bit. The winner would be the Moose balls in terms of feel and feedback straight away on a new. And so while if that was your criteria, and it is for the most part on mine, I'm still going to put Moose balls in first place. I think I'm going to creep these into second place, and then the Michelin will be third. And there are other Mooses out there, and I don't put those in my ranking because they have attributes that I don't need or want or find favorable. So those are my top 3 picks with Moose as of right now. And then these tires are just great. And I've got on the front, this is the Shinko 216, and Golden Tire makes, no, I'm sorry, this is the Motoz. This is Motoz Tractionator IT, Enduro IT, which is a great tire. I like that tire. So that's probably what I've got to say about the tires and the Moose. Let's cover exhaust ECU. So Right now we have the Get ECU system. This is the SX1, the Takamoto exclusive SX1 setup, traction control knob, and then the Graves system with the stock KTM header. There are other headers out there, aftermarket headers, and I find them to be harsh and abrupt with the power. I run the Graves with the insert left in, and this combination, after mixing and matching every exhaust commercially available and every ECU and tuning product that there is, this is my absolute go-to configuration. There are others that I like nearly as well. I like the stock muffler with the ProMoto billet end cap, nearly as good as the Graves. The Graves, though, just tips the scale as far as weight and with bottom end, low end feel and performance. So let me back up one sentence. The low end smoothness of the stock with the ProMoto end cap and the ultra silent insert is just edges out the Graves here in that specific category of the throttle range of the RPM band. The Graves sort of is a better profile everywhere else. So for me, the Graves is a better all-arounder, and it's lighter and it looks great. So there's and I like the sound. So there's a few clicks that give the vote to the Graves over the stock muffler with the ProMoto end cap and an ultra silent insert. But I like both of those. Those are my two top picks for exhaust. I'm running the Graves. Second place behind the Get ECU system would be the Power Commander. The Power Commander for the money is an absolute bargain. You don't get the bells and whistles. So a lot of times it comes down to features and attributes. The Get is the ultimate. It has all of the functions and features. The Power Commander has none. There's a map switch where you can just toggle between a wide open power map and an economy map. So there's that. So I've got a 1 and 2 place, and it's this Graves. I just described that, and then the Power Commander would be my number 2, second place in terms of tuning and power. Let's talk about the clutch. We've got the Recluse 4.0. This clutch is the evolution of the 3.0, which is the evolution of the Z-Start Pro. Like it's their latest iteration of the automatic clutch. Now that's not automatic transmission. We should probably do a deep dive on what is an automatic clutch, what is a Recluse clutch versus a manual clutch. So essentially this turns this bike into a snowmobile. That is to say, if it's sitting in idle, there is no forward movement. It can be in gear, sitting in idle. And then when the revs go up, automatic engagement of the torque to the wheel. And so you don't have to clutch into the power. The power is there at the right hand, and it's dependent on RPM. And the 4.0 is... there's an absolute noticeable difference between this and the 3.0, and it's primarily with engine braking, downhill braking. On the 3.0, to get really good engagement for engine braking at idle, it takes either how we've kind of perfected that out is with springs. There are some who like to use different weight wedges. I don't care for the heavier weighted wedges. I like the stock included wedge weights, but I do play around with the springs. I go to I think it's the silver or the blue, I forget. It's the lightest spring. So if you put the lightest spring in, you get the earliest engagement, and that gives you the best engine braking on the 3.0 system. On the 4 here, I put it in exactly as recommended by Recluse with intermix. I think it's like silver and blue springs, stock weights, everything as it came out of the box. Fabulous, absolutely fantastic. Very noticeable over the other version, but not to an extent that if you have a 3.0, I don't think, I wouldn't, I'm not going to change any of my other bikes. So I've got 3.0s and all the other ones. I'm not going to swap them out. But doing a new bike project, go for the 4. And on a lot of fitments, they only offer the 4. So it's an evolution, not a revolution. It doesn't change any of the operational parameters of the Recluse. It just slightly improves that throttle uptake and then engine braking. The application of the throttle in very low angle situations, very small throttle inputs is smoother, and that's because they're roller bearings rather than the Teflon shims of the previous gen. And so you can detect that, you can feel that. The rear wheel gives less shuddering at very micro applications as opposed to this one, which is just very fluid. Now, are those micro pulses a big negative? No, absolutely not. In fact, look, this is a thumper. This is a big bore, long stroke thumper. And so those power pulses are there anyway. And the Recluse helps you know that they're there on the 3.0. The 4.0 is just a little finer. It's a Swiss watch made just a little more accurately is how I would probably sum that up. So I'm a big fan. I really like it. And if you have the option, go for that. I put Recluses on all our bikes and absolutely love them. Let's see, let's talk about the seat. I typically don't, this is the XL, so this is the Seat Concepts XL width. I typically run the Comfort width, which it's just been my standby. It's just been the one I go to. The thing that I realize with the XL is that there is very little to any back leg interference. That means if you need to really get back on the bike to do an aggressive downhill, I always presuppose that the XL would interfere with that. And the reason I did is because back in the day, in the old 530 generation bikes, I had a 530 with a KTM hard parts seat that had a big wing like this, a big wide wing in the rear. And it was extreme. It was further up and wider, and it hit the back of your legs. It impeded downhill, and I took it off. I rode it a few times and took it off. And so I just had this prejudice against a wide back seat, not really having invested much time in testing it out as a Seat Concepts version. And so on this bike, I just opted for it because I think we had one in stock, and what the heck, trying different things, experimenting, and I'll be damned if I don't love it. And it's now my go-to seat. I'm going to have that XL size on all my bikes. I'm doing a hard enduro event in Baja in a couple of weeks, and I've debated whether or not to use it. And so I think I'm going to start out with that seat and bring a standard Comfort width and then swap out if I feel like I need it. But I don't think I will. I think I'm going to run that seat the whole event. So that's been a big success so far. While we're talking about kind of this upper area, the gas tank, a bit of a disappointment here. This stock tank is like 8 liters. This Acerbis is 12. This is the biggest tank available. The IMS tank is 11. It's like $460. This one is nearly half the cost, and it's a liter bigger. So I think IMS has some work to do. I think where they could really shine ahead is coming out with a huge version. I have it on good authority that Acerbis is working on a bigger version than this 12, and I think it's in the 15 range, and it would be great if they did a big 4.5 gallon one as well. I don't know how many liters that translates out to, but you know, the big tank where it wrap around, a wraparound tank is really what I'm getting at. And right now the aftermarket is we're all adapting to this new platform, and we're all working out our products and our systems. And so it's just early, and the 12 is the biggest tank you're going to get. I never ran out of gas. I know it's a problem. I know that the pickup is high. We are working on a solution for that. Thank you for your patience. We're working very hard on getting that finalized and out to market. And in the meantime, I'm running this 12 liter, and I just made sure to stop at every fuel opportunity along the way and top up and keep it full, and didn't have any issues with that size tank at all. Let's see, pegs. I think I've talked about these before. These are the Evo Air Extends, and I run these on all our bikes. And this is, to me, this is just a safety feature. Basically, I'm in the back country, I'm on a long ride. I don't want to risk doing a hyperextension on my ankles. I don't want to risk injuries, and so I run these. Do they impact hard enduro? Yes, they do. Because you can't get, there are some times where it's a really gnarly downhill where you need to like do an extreme pivot back on your peg just to keep your balance the way you need to. So I learned to adapt by swinging my foot out clear of the the little ankle stopper there. Is it doable? Yeah, it's totally doable. It just becomes a new sort of habit of riding. Is it ideal? No, because if you don't want to learn that, if you don't want to adapt to that, then this peg becomes problematic for that. So what are some of the workarounds? Like I just described, you can just readapt your riding style. Another thing that I'm probably going to do on this ride that I'm talking about is I'm going to bring a set of standard pegs. They're the MOTO standards without this. And so I'm going to swap back and forth. Which will I prefer? I don't know. And I will report back on that. So we'll see. Bars, stabilizer, the whole cockpit situation. This has gone really well. So this is a Husky, and Husky puts on Pro Taper Evo bars. The Evo bars, the Pro Tapers have more flex than the neck and bars on the KTM, and I prefer this is probably the best stock bar on any of the bikes today, any of the dual sport bikes. The Necken would be last. For me, they're the worst, and these Pro Tapers are the best for stock. On all our bars, whatever they are, we always drill at the ends and put in the Fastway, or the Fast Flex brass threaded insert. That's like a damping rod that goes in here, and that in conjunction with some sort of rubber isolated damping mounting system and these OD Rogue clamp-on grips, all of that together work out to, for me anyway, work out to be a really ideal bar mounting situation to deal with vibrations in the handlebars. So I ran this setup and I was very happy with it. I am going to continue the experimentation and swap these bars out for the Astra bars. I have a set of Astra 43, I forget which version of them are going to go on here. And so I'll do the same thing. Throw on those Astra bars, tap it out, throw in the insert, continue with these grips. And then this next version of that, I'm going to swap out the BRP mounting system and then throw on a, why am I having a brain fade? Mako 360. There we go. XC Gear Mako 360. And always with the stabilizer. I absolutely run a stabilizer. For me, this is essential safety feature because we're in the West and it's so rocky and ruddy and rain ruts. It is absolutely an energy saver. And then in for me anyway, in past instances, it's for sure been a lifesaver. I know that my stabilizer has saved my life, right? Not to put too fine a point on it, multiple times where I have side struck rocks, and I know that the energy absorption of stabilizer kept me upright. Absolutely. I spend a lot of time while I'm riding. I'm not a set it and forget it rider. I don't do that with my suspension clickers. I don't do that with my fuel tuning. Like I'm the rider who is continually readapting the configuration of the bike to the conditions. I want to optimize everything possible. And so I am taking the slow knob here. Now I've set the high speed at a fixed point, and I've left that, and I've set my end points here, and you can read your manual and see all about that, what these screws are. There's 2 screws on the side, and then there's two knobs up here on the top. But my my low speed, I am always adjusting that. So if I'm in some single track, that goes down to 0, and then as soon as I get into high speed sections, then I'm dialing this up and then feeling the resistance in the bars. I'm turning the bars and then adjusting this while I'm in motion riding to feather that out and then set that catch point for the low speed as needed. And I can't say enough about putting a stabilizer on a bike that is ridden in Western states, rocky, Baja conditions, when you're doing endurance type riding. And so as you may know this about my riding style, I'm doing BDR type rides, long duration, 700 miles Phoenix to Vegas, Baja for a week. And I really need to be thoughtful of how much energy I'm spending, how much energy I'm deploying on a ride, and then doing everything I can to be as safe as possible and conserve that energy as possible. and the recluse and this and the bars, all of these things, they all work together in conjunction to give me a bike, a machine that I can spend 10 hours on and do that day after day after day and not be absolutely gassed out. And this is just this is an essential part of that. So gonna make some changes there and then we'll report back on that. Let's see, moving forward, lighting, let's talk about that. So I've said this before as far as this headlight. This is the Cyclops Rally light, and I'm 100% running this light on this bike this year, just completely for style points. If you notice, I've got the gold rims here, and so now this sort of ties up the package, and this is all just about looks. I'm just so much a fan of the vintage gold rim Husky 80s look, and that's exactly what I'm going for here. I have a set of kind of vintage look graphics that I have yet to put on, and those will, next video update, those will be on, and I'm going to continue to run that look. And to get that, I wanted this light. Now, the light output of this light is meager, and that's not Cyclops' fault. That's because they're using, again for look, this is the, it's a Hella H4 glass. It's not sealed because it's a replaceable light bulb itself, but this is a sealed glass chamber, light chamber. It's just I think the patent on this, or not a patent, but I looked this up on Hella's website, and there was documentation going back to the 80s. So this is an old tech light, and I've got the Cyclops ultra bright LED insert bulb in there. So I'm getting the most light out of that possible. Cyclops does have a Phoenix light insert, which is it's got multiple LED elements, and it looks modern and space age, and that's not what I'm going for. So I'm very intentionally running that light for all those reasons I just described. Now, to get proper lighting, then I've got the MOTO minded. This is a Baja Designs S1 light on something they call, let's look at it from this side, something they call the RAD lighting system, RAD, R-A-D, radiator lighting mount. And this is very, very clever. I'm absolutely a big fan of this. It's a stainless steel bracket, bent bracket that mounts to the radiator side bolts and then puts these S1s right here nestled within the little nook here of your radiator shrouds, your gas tank shrouds. And those lights are absolutely night burners. Those two S1s put out a crap ton of light. They do a great job. And I've got one set in wide beam, so this is a wide flat. The throw of that light is wide and flat, and that's a spot. I probably am going to swap the wide flat out to a spot because this is essentially my wide flat. And so I'd really like these both to be long throw. So for that exact reason, that's why I'm running this setup, and I am very happy with it. It's heavy. There's a lot of weight to this, and it's up high. Plus I got my GPS here, Voyager Pro. So there's some absolute downsides to it. This is not for everybody. And I really don't recommend this setup unless your goal is like mine. But if you're purely going for light, in a real simple package, the Ruby R7 for us is the single best headlight there is. The single best all around, all use, all rider, all conditions light. There are others that are more specialized, like a Baja Designs XL80. That is an extreme long throw, high speed light. That's probably an 80 mile an hour open desert light, where the Ruby might be a 60. This stock light, when I have these off, this is a 30 mile an hour light. When I throw these on, I feel comfortable at about 45 miles an hour. So really, a light, when you look at a light spec sheet and it tells you how many lumens and all of that, that's a lot of hocus pocus often. And often it's equivalent to the horsepower numbers that some manufacturers and vendors will give. There's just a lot of marketing blah blah in a bunch of that. And we're not big on talking about horsepower numbers, and talking about lumen numbers is also kind of a waste of time. For us, it's about the comfort level, the factor of what speed do I feel comfortable riding that particular light in a particular situation. And I've given you sort of my personal experience with those lights. And let me highlight one thing here we've put on. These are our new turn signals. They have a really nice, bright white run light feature. And then when they're in turn signal mode, they cascade out, they blink out. And this bike has been fully adapted with our dual sport lighting kit. And so we've got full streetable functionality on this with horn and turn signals and all of that. And then with the Tidy Tail, it's the all-in-one rear light module, and it's so streetable. That has been very fun conversion on this bike as well. Maybe we'll wrap up with suspension. So I have talked before, when I first rode this bike early on, I absolutely noticed the stiffness and rigidity, the increased stiffness and rigidity of this bike over the previous generation bike. And so I had immediately, and running stock suspension, full stock suspension. So I derated the rear axle, the swing arm bolt, and then the engine hanger bolts 10%. And that gave me back the comfort that I like and have talked about here with the riding that I do, more dual sport riding, ADV, adventure, long duration with hard enduro thrown in. And by doing that, I was able to kind of recoup back some of that plushness. We have since gone through our in-house suspension tuning, and we have revalved, reformulated the front end and the shock. And after doing that, I gained, it was a night and day difference, because what I gained was the plushness and the feedback that I was after initially. And then I've since gone back and then retorqued those bolts back to spec, and then retained, if not gained, more plushness and pliability that I was after in the first instance. And then when I throw on bags and I'll throw on Moscow bags and we'll go on some rides, some overnight excursion rides, and then I know that I won't feel loose. It won't sort of swing back and forth between loose and tight, loose and tight. This is the right configuration. And the adaptability now, the stock fork was very good at moderate pace, spirited riding on double track. Where it did not serve me well was on hard enduro, slow, hill climbing, rock scrambling. It pinged off stuff. No matter what I did with the clickers, top and bottom, I couldn't get it in the pocket, and it was very frustrating. The shock, however, was very good almost everywhere. I didn't really have any complaints about the shock. I was quite pleased and impressed with that. The front felt better than any stock KTM fork on a dirt bike in ages. However, it just wasn't broad enough for what I was doing, for what I'm doing. So we've completely revamped it, and it is now what I like. It's now where I want it. And so I'm absolutely stoked and thrilled about that. We went ahead and revalved the shock anyway, just to give it a little more compliance for all that hard scramble, hard enduro type stuff, which it's there. Now, I talked about clicker settings. Because I ride this bike in such a broad variety of conditions, it's not a one and done. That is to say, there is, because I've gained that improvement, I didn't set it at one clicker setting and then leave it. When we were in Arizona, we did a really challenging, very strenuous hard enduro section. And so I took quite a few clicks out on the compression, added a little on the rebound, adjusted the shock. I had to make adjustments for it to be adapted to that situation. We also had some very, very aggressive in between Kingman and Laughlin. There is a incredibly rugged mountain range with some really cool, beautiful, primitive roads, and very rocky, rutted, rained out, and that needed some different suspension settings than doing double track, whoopee stuff, high speed, wide open. So needing to change some of those suspension settings is essential if you want to get your equipment exactly suited for those exact conditions. And those necessitate, like I've said, they necessitate changing maps. So like I didn't run race map on the ECU with the hard enduro stuff. I ran it in map 2 and I cranked up the traction control took out suspension, adjusted the stabilizer, and then absolutely optimized it for that day and those conditions. And it was money. It was so good. It was absolutely solid gold. Then out of those conditions, that was a week set up for high speed, faster rocky sections, whoop sections. The suspension was too soft, so I added clickers in, adjusted the shock, went higher on my stabilizer, clicked over to map 1, got rid of some of the traction control. So these types of adjustments are just what you do when you want to have a bike that is exactly dialed in for those exact conditions. And these are all, I don't know if skill is the right word, but they're just techniques that a rider can learn and can understand and then can use. And we might look at doing some training or some shop open. I think one of the things we're going to try to do this year is do some shop open houses where we can bring, riders can come visit our shop, bring their bikes, and we can help with setups, help with configurations, suspension, chassis, all of that stuff, fuel tuning, your ECU setups, so that you get a bike that is as adaptable as you need. I'm maybe in an extreme case, I'm trying to create a bike here that can do absolutely everything. I want my mindset on this bike is, can I own one motorcycle that can replace everything down from a 252 stroke all the way up to maybe a 790, 890. Can I have a bike that will do everything in between? Now, it's not going to do any one of those exceptionally well. I can't mimic and turn this bike into a single track fighter like a little 252 stroke. It can't do that, but I can get it really damn close. And I'm not going to be able to run, 95 miles an hour on the highway like a 790 does in really smooth comfort. But I can run and demonstrate that I can run on the interstate, and I can keep up with traffic. I can run with trucks and not buzz myself to death. So there's just this agenda that I have, this drive that I have to create the configurations for a really, really wildly adaptable, very usable multi-platform bike. And this 24 has continued and will continue, I think, to just really surprise and impress me. Let me show you here. This is something that I noticed the other day. I noticed all these little Easter eggs about how great the new bike is. Previous generation bikes, the foot lever spring, the rear brake spring, the spring went to, in fact, Recluse even threw a little hole in there. The spring used to go to here. And so it's just one of those little annoyances that when you pull the clutch out to do any inspections, you have to take the spring out of the clutch. And if you're doing a lot of checking and adjusting, then that's super annoying. Well, now on this frame, they've put it here. And so you can pull the clutch off, on and off, without having to deal with that. So just a tiny little nicety that, again, I think speaks to the fact that the engineering staff on this bike has paid attention. They've paid a lot of attention to riders, what their needs are, what our requests are. I know I've sent emails with punch list items and, little small requests. And I know you guys all have as well, riders have as well. So this just indicates to me that on the new bike here, boy, they have really done their homework and spent a lot of time looking at those small things and incorporating them into the machine. So I continue to be impressed. Please let me know. Let me know where you think I'm on the right track, or if I've got something wrong, what you think about the 24. Let's hear about it. So drop those down in the comments below. And if you would like us to set up a bike like this for you, to build you a bike or adapt your bike, please let us know. We have a full bike build program, and that's overseen by RTW Paul. He's handling that and is doing a really bang-up job with that. And a lot of you have taken advantage of that, and we continue to want to offer that for you as well. So thanks for checking this out. Hope to see you on the trail. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.